I'm Jackie. Standing in my kitchen, I watched as my husband, Ethan, turned as pale as a ghost. The question, "Do you know what illness she has?" had just slipped from my lips, and it hit him like a ton of bricks. His laptop bag tumbled from his shoulder, crashing onto the hardwood floor with a thud. His hand flew to his throat, and he gasped, "What?" It was barely a whisper, strangled with fear. I took a deep breath, keeping my voice steady. "Ethan, the illness. I'm assuming she told you, given how much time you've spent together in Key West these past 15 days. I watched his face contort with confusion, panic, and horror as he started to make connections. Let me take you back to how it all started. I met Ethan at a coffee shop in Chicago when I was 28. I had just started a new job at a local community center, working with underprivileged kids. It was a job I was passionate about, but it was also exhausting. I was running on fumes and desperately needed a caffeine fix. The barista called out an order, and I was handed a black coffee. I was confused because I had ordered a caramel macchiato. Before I could say anything, a man behind me in line spoke up. "That's actually mine. But you look like you need the caffeine more than I do." He had a warm, genuine smile that made his eyes crinkle at the corners. We ended up chatting for a while, and I learned that his name was Ethan. He was 30 and worked in marketing. He was charming, funny, and genuinely interested in my work. 2 days later, he showed up at my office with a caramel macchiato and a note with his phone number. We dated for 2 years. It wasn't a whirlwind romance, but it was steady and real. We had our share of arguments, but we always worked things out. We talked about our future, about getting married and having a family. Ethan proposed on a quiet evening at home, and I said yes, without hesitation. We got married in a small ceremony in a local park, surrounded by our closest friends and family. My parents, who had always been supportive and loving, were overjoyed. Ethan's parents, a bit more reserved but still kind, also showed their happiness. We honeymooned in Hawaii, spending a week relaxing on the beach and planning our future. When we got back, we moved into a small apartment in the city. It wasn't much, but it was ours. We decorated it together, arguing over furniture placement, but always finding a compromise. We adopted a rescue dog, a golden retriever named Max, who quickly became the center of our lives. For the next few years, our marriage was good. Ethan climbed the corporate ladder at his job, and I continued to work at the community center. We had our traditions, like celebrating our anniversary with a special dinner and exchanging handwritten cards. We talked about having kids, but we always said we'd wait until we were more financially stable. Then, about 18 months ago, a woman named Lily joined Ethan's team at work. At first, it was just casual mentions. Lily came up with a great idea for a campaign, he'd say. I didn't think much of it. Ethan had work friends, and that was healthy. But as time went on, Lily's name started to appear more frequently in his stories. Lily and I had lunch to discuss a project, he'd tell me. And then the term work wife started to come up. "Lily is basically my work wife at this point," he'd say, laughing. "She just gets me." I should have listened to the small voice in my head that told me something was wrong. I ignored the signs, like how Ethan started checking his phone more often during dinner, how he'd angle the screen away from me when texting. I ignored the new cologne he started wearing, something expensive and musky that I hadn't bought him. I told myself I was being paranoid, that work was going well for him, and he was just happy. 3 months ago, Ethan came home from work one evening, practically vibrating with excitement. "I got it," he said, grinning from ear to ear. "The big account in Los Angeles. They want me to lead the entire pitch." I was happy for him, of course. "That's amazing. When do you present?" I asked. He pulled out his laptop and showed me the itinerary. "They want us down there for the full process. It's going to be about 2 weeks. I was a bit disappointed that he'd be gone for so long, but I knew it was important for his career. "When do you leave?" I asked. "Next Friday," he said. "I know it's soon, but they want to move fast." I thought about taking some time off and going with him. "What if I come with you? I could explore Los Angeles while you're in meetings, and we could have the evenings together." His expression shifted slightly, but he quickly recovered. "That's sweet, but it wouldn't really work." The meetings are going to run late, and I'd feel bad leaving you alone in the hotel room every night. I felt a twinge of disappointment, but I didn't want to seem needy. You're right, I said. I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking. The next 2 weeks were a flurry of preparation. Ethan practiced his presentations at home, and I offered feedback. He revised slides late into the night and took conference calls at odd hours. I helped him pack, making sure he had everything he needed. The morning he left, I kissed him goodbye at the door. I'll miss you, I said. I'll call you every night, he promised. The first few days, he kept his promise. He called in the evenings, but the conversations were brief. He sounded tired and distracted. The meetings are exhausting, he'd say. The client is really demanding. But by the 4th day, the calls stopped. Text messages replaced them. Too exhausted to talk. Meetings ran late. Love you, he'd text. I started to feel a sense of unease. Something didn't feel right. I tried to convince myself that it was just the stress of the trip, but the feeling wouldn't go away. On the 5th day, I decided to call the hotel he'd mentioned, the Hilton in downtown Los Angeles. Hi, I need to be connected to my husband's room. Ethan Miller, I said. There was a pause, and then the receptionist said, I'm sorry, ma'am. We don't have a guest by that name currently checked in. My heart sank. Can you check again? He would have checked in last Friday. More typing and then, no, ma'am. I'm showing no reservation under that name for the past week. I thanked her and hung up, my hands shaking. I called back and asked which Hilton location it was. It was the downtown one. I had her check 3 other Hiltons in the area, but there was no sign of Ethan. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to come up with explanations. Maybe his company had booked the room under a different name. Maybe he'd said a different hotel. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. I got up in the middle of the night and logged into our joint credit card account. I pulled up the transactions from the past few days, and my heart stopped. There were charges from Santa Barbara, not Los Angeles. There were charges for a romantic dinner at a beachfront restaurant, a couple's massage at a spa, and a stay at a luxury resort. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the screen, feeling sick to my stomach. Ethan had lied to me. He was in Santa Barbara with Lily, not on a business trip in Los Angeles. I spent the next few days gathering evidence. I recovered deleted text messages from our shared iCloud account. The messages went back 18 months, and they told a story of a relationship that had slowly developed over time. At first, they were just work-related, but as time went on, they became more personal. I found messages where they planned their trip to Santa Barbara. I can't wait to be with you in Santa Barbara, Lily had texted. Just the 2 of us for 2 weeks. Ethan had replied, I know. I hate lying to Jackie, but she'd never understand. Lily had said, what she doesn't know won't hurt her. Besides, you said the marriage has been dead for years anyway. Dead for years. Those words hit me like a punch in the gut. We had celebrated our anniversary just a few months ago, and he had told me how much he loved me, how grateful he was for our life together. I screenshot every message, organized them chronologically, and backed them up to multiple cloud services. I also found a lease agreement for an apartment in Santa Barbara that Ethan and Lily had signed. They had been planning a life together right under my nose. On the 10th day of Ethan's trip, I came up with a plan. I knew I needed to make him feel the same fear and panic that I had been feeling. I rehearsed the question over and over in my head. By the time Ethan came home on the 15th day, I was ready. I had cleaned the apartment, made his favorite dinner, and put on the dress he always said he loved. God, I missed you, he said as he walked through the door, dropping his duffel bag and reaching for me. I hugged him back, but I couldn't help but notice the changes in him. His hair was lighter, sun-bleached, and his skin had a healthy glow. He looked like he had just had the vacation of his life. How was it? I asked, trying to sound casual. Brutal, he sighed. Back-to-back meetings, client dinners every night. I barely slept, but we landed the account, so it was worth it. I nodded, asking follow-up questions. Was the hotel nice? Standard business hotel. Nothing special, he said. How is the weather in Los Angeles? Hot and humid, he replied. Every word out of his mouth was a lie, and he delivered them so smoothly. I followed him to the bedroom as he unpacked. "I'm sure Lily was a big help with the presentation," I said casually. He froze for a second, and then forced a smile. "Yeah, she did great. You know her. Always prepared." I nodded slowly. "I do know her. That's why I was surprised when I found out." He looked at me, his eyes filled with suspicion. "Found out what?" I didn't answer right away. I let the silence stretch, letting his imagination run wild. Then I walked into the kitchen. "I'm making your favorite for dinner. It'll be ready in about an hour," I called over my shoulder. He followed me into the kitchen, hovering in the doorway. "Jackie, what did you find out? What are you talking about?" I turned to face him, holding a knife in my hand. "Do you know what illness she has?" The color drained from his face, and he stumbled backward. "What?" he gasped. I kept my voice level. "Lily, the illness. I'm assuming she told you, given how much time you spent together in Santa Barbara." He reached for his phone, his hands shaking. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said, but his voice was filled with panic. "It's serious, Ethan. The kind of thing that doesn't just go away. The kind of thing that spreads through close contact," I said. "You might want to get tested today. The clinic on Main Street is open until 7. He stared at me for a moment, and then he grabbed his keys and phone and ran out of the house. After he left, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat down on the couch. I spread out all the evidence I had gathered in front of me, like a detective laying out a crime scene. My phone buzzed. It was Ethan texting from the clinic. "What illness?" "Lily isn't answering." I took a sip of wine and didn't respond. Another text came in a few minutes later. "Jackie, please. I'm freaking out." "What are you talking about?" I set my phone face down on the coffee table and took another sip of wine. Let him sit there and wonder, I thought. Let him feel the same fear that I've been feeling. I also discovered that Ethan had taken a large sum of money from our savings account without telling me. I found the paperwork for the apartment lease in Santa Barbara, and it all added up. He had been planning this for a long time. I also found out that Lily was married with 2 kids. I felt sick to my stomach, thinking about the damage they were causing to so many lives. I decided to contact Lily's husband, Mark. I created an anonymous email account and sent him all the evidence I gathered. A few days later, Mark called me. We met at a coffee shop, and he was devastated. He had no idea that Lily was having an affair. We compared notes and shared our pain. We decided to file for divorce together as a show of solidarity. I hired a divorce attorney, a tough and no-nonsense woman named Laura. She looked at all the evidence I had gathered and said, "This is a slam-dunk case. We're going to make sure he pays for what he's done." Ethan tried to avoid the divorce, but he had no choice. The evidence was too overwhelming. In the end, we reached a settlement. I kept the apartment, 70% of our marital assets, and he had to pay full reimbursement for all the money he had spent on Lily. He also had to acknowledge his adultery and financial misconduct. The day we signed the divorce papers, I felt a sense of relief. It was over. I was free. Ethan looked defeated, but I didn't feel sorry for him. He had made his choices, and he had to face the consequences. In the weeks that followed, I started to pick up the pieces of my life. I redecorated the apartment, got rid of all the reminders of Ethan. I focused on my work at the community center and spent more time with my friends and family. A month after the divorce, Mark texted me. "The custody hearing went well. The kids are staying with me." I was happy for him. "That's great news. How are you holding up?" "One day at a time," he replied. "How about you?" "Same," I said. "But we're still standing. That counts for something." We made plans to meet for coffee the following week. It was nice to have someone who understood what I was going through. One evening, as I was standing at the window of my apartment, looking out at the city, my phone buzzed. It was a text from a neighbor inviting me to join them for drinks. "Maybe," I typed back. "Can I let you know tomorrow?" I put my phone down and looked back at my reflection in the window. I saw a woman who had been through a lot, but who was also stronger than she had ever been. I wasn't ready to trust again, but I knew that someday I would be. I turned away from the window and walked into the kitchen to make dinner. It was just another day in my new life, but it was a day filled with hope.